How many of you have heard of SCORE in the room? Wow. Why am I here? Wow.
You're going to enlighten us.
Huh?
You're going to enlighten us.
Jeez. By the way, Bill, you didn't ask me if I signed an NDA when I came here. I could hear all of this, walk out the Perkins and tell everybody.
I didn't. Did you?
But everybody who is a mentor at SCORE, everybody has to sign an NDA with the federal government because SCORE is part of the federal government. So when people come to SCORE, which I'll talk about later, many people like you that have great ideas, they want to know if they want to turn it from a hobby to a business. They come to SCORE and everything you talk about is confidential. So much so that we have to sign that we cannot invest with you. We can't tell our family about what you're doing. We can't have our family or friends invest with what you're doing. And sometimes we hear some of the greatest ideas. And sometimes we hear some of the dumbest ideas. But you might say, do you ever tell the people that they're dumb ideas? No. Because how would we know? None of us would know that. So, let me just, not because I'm trying to brag, but I want you to know my background. So when I talk to you, this is where I come from. This is my knowledge. My knowledge was to industrial distribution and manufacturing. And putting businesses together, buying companies, selling companies. I started out with a dream. I lived in a small town and I came from a poor family. I just had a dream and started my own company. Tell my wife I'll be home in an hour. Okay? So many of the people we mentor are people who come to us with a dream. So I'm going to talk to you about who and what is SCORE, entrepreneurship, the type of businesses, success factors in being a business, and a list of questions that you should have before you start. And by the way, if you have any questions, ask while I'm talking. It won't bother me. I'll get right back to where I was. So who and what is SCORE? I shouldn't even have to tell you this because you all know it already. You all heard of SCORE because we have 340 chapters all around the country. There are 12 to 14,000 people like me. Well, not exactly like me, but people who want to volunteer their time to help people like you. Men and women who used to be retired, just men and women volunteering their time. I think Max asked me what does SCORE stand for, and I said, well, it doesn't stand for anything anymore. It's not an acronym. It used to be, though. It used to mean Service Corps of Retired Executives. It doesn't apply anymore because a third of the members at SCORE are not retired. So we're just named SCORE. 10 to 12,000 people like around the country and over 340 offices. And it was started 51 years ago in St. Louis Park. Can you imagine that? Not only do we have the Minnesota Vikings, SCORE was started right here. An executive from 3M and Honeywell were friends. They were all retired about the same time. They said, well, what are we going to do with our time? Let's help out people who want to start a business. And I identify with it because I retired 7 years ago. I remember it very well because it was the worst time in my life. My sons came to me and said, Dad, it's time for you to retire. And I go, what? It's time for you to retire and enjoy yourself. And I never forgot that line because I wanted to say something very cutting back because I was enjoying myself. I loved what I did. Loved it. I didn't want to retire. Where they were coming from is, why don't you travel? Why don't you go out and enjoy life? Because they saw me working, but I loved what I did. And some of you can identify with that. So that's who SCORE is. We're a nonprofit. We are a resource partner of the SBA. If you go onto the SBA website, you will see that they relate back into SCORE. Who do we work with? Who do we help? People who we call them, I used to use the word dreamers. That's taken on a totally different word in our society anymore. So I got to think of a different word. But it's people who are thinking of starting a business. We call them pre-starters. You're thinking of going into business. And people who are starting up, and people who have been in business for over a year. We help them all. And we help people who about 30% are considering it, and maybe they won't even go into business. Even if we help them make a decision not to go into business, we feel we've helped them. We've saved them a lot of time and, more importantly, a lot of money. So we aren't pushing anybody to go into business. We want to help them. 38% are in that process of starting, and a third are already in business. Many of the businesses. 47% are women. In the Minneapolis area, 60% of the people going into business today are women. Is there anybody older than me here? Well, maybe I see one person, maybe. I'm not so, no, not you, that's not who I'm talking about. The guy to your left, he might be older than me. Well, when I grew up, women didn't go in business. If you remember, if your wife worked, it was like a put down of the man. You mean you can't support the family? And boy, is that turned around now. So a lot of women are going into business, and that's terrific. 46% are minorities, and 11% are veterans. And the SBA has specific programs for the veterans. Generally, we help people in that bucket from 1 to 20 employees, but we do help them all. What's interesting, the federal government considers small business, and some of you already know that, under 500 employees. And I go, 500? 400 is a huge company to me, but the federal government identifies that as small business. We identify small as being 20 or less. That's the price we charge you for coming to SCORE. Somebody brought up Legal Corps is coming here. Legal Corps volunteers their attorneys to SCORE every Friday, free. I never knew I could talk to an attorney free. And the first 3 Fridays are general information, and the 4th Friday is patent, copyrights, and trademarks. Just that subject. And you get an hour to visit with an attorney free at the SCORE office. And our SCORE office, some of you already know, is in St. Louis Park near Norwood. And if you think about, earlier somebody said about
Kevin Harrington.
Well, that, and yeah, and what you brought up, Steve, was I wrote a book when I retired. One of the chapters I put in the book was I thanked various groups and people for all the help they gave me along my life in business. You will learn more from other people than you will ever learn on your own, ever. The fact that you are here tonight is a step saying, I want to learn some more from some other people, or you wouldn't be here. So the more of these subjects and people you can listen to, if you pick up one item from somebody who said something, just one, it was successful for you. It was worth it. I was one of those people who learned a lot from a lot of people. I sure didn't make it on my own, that's for sure. So if you think about SCORE, that we have all these people with all this background, from food to distribution to manufacturing, all of these areas that they've been in this business, and you get to talk to them and get advice free. It's incredible. I'll tell you an interesting fact. I get 2 hours to talk. Is that what you told me when I said, oh, okay, that's not a fact. And
Close though.
2 years ago, I went to visit with the Secretary of State of Minnesota. And because I wanted to get a list of small people just went into business. You filed an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, and you have to go to the state. I'd like that list for SCORE. So how many people were on that list? Now, I went in July, so he had everything from January to June. How many people do you think, how many companies do you think registered a name in the state of Minnesota, the whole state? What would you guess? Come up with a number. Huh?
200?
200?
20,000?
2/3 of a million.
Who said what?
20,000. What time?
You've heard my speech before.
No.
What?
With 21,000. Can you, nobody ever came near that number.
What time frame is that?
January through June 30th.
6 months?
Can you imagine that?
That's new.
New, registered new businesses, but it doesn't mean they all went into business, does it? Because you can go ahead and register your name and decide not to go in business, and your registration is good. Can you imagine that? I was blown away. Now I can get a list, so can you, of all the name of the companies, the individual, the address, the owner. There's one thing you can't get, because it's against the law. What is it? Huh?
Phone number?
No, you can get that. Close? Email address.
What?
No email address. The state will not provide it. Because we wanted to load it in our database and then let them get all the announcements and store it. Can't get it. But that's how many are registering their name. Generally, they're an LLC, an S, or a C. If you're a sole proprietorship, you don't have to register that with the state. I'm going to start Mort's Lawn Care, and mow lawns. I don't have to register.
Why would the state not allow emails, but allow addresses and phone numbers?
I can't answer your question, but phone numbers, the name of the individual, name of the company, the address, everything you want except for the email address.
Is that a state law or federal law?
I don't know. It's state law for sure, but I don't know if it's a federal law.
Well, email is not a federal program.
I'm sorry.
Email is not a federal program,
No.
private.
When you're watching television tonight for the past couple of days with Facebook, you're going to wonder what is going to be federally, what they're going to be involved with. I mean, it's incredible.
What kind of email is it?
Yeah. Every time you hear the word entrepreneurship, what is that? Well, it's a person that organizes and operates a business taking on greater than normal financial risk in order to do so. But the purpose is to make a profit. Now, the purpose of that is to make a profit. Because if your purpose is not to make a profit, then you have a hobby. I didn't mean that as a joke. The IRS says after 3 years, if they decide your purpose of yours is just to write off your expenses, then you got a hobby. You don't write off your hobby. So the purpose is to make a profit. That's the purpose of business or an entrepreneurship. Now, don't get me wrong, when I was in business, I did have some years where I didn't make a profit. I didn't think it was a hobby for me. I just didn't make any money. The characteristics of somebody who gets into business are these. Number one, you got to be a self-starter. And you know what that means, because some people are not self-starters. They're just not. I remember taking my grandson to college because up in Duluth, UMD. Normally his mother would take him, but she didn't want to cry the whole trip up. And so the umbilical cord stretched from here all the way to Duluth. So I dropped him off at the dorm and I said to him, Dean, I got some real bad news for you. He says, what, Grandpa? Listen to me carefully. Nobody's going to wake you up in the morning to go to school. Your mother is not going to wake you up and say, honey, here's some hot chocolate and some toast. Nobody cares. They got your money. When you're in business for yourself, nobody cares but you. So you have to be a self-starter. Number one. If you're not, don't go into business. That's simple. The rest, you understand. When you look at that, you understand that. I'll tell you another advantage of being in business for yourself. It's called the Moore Harris Health Plan, not the Obamacare health plan, the Moore Harris Health Plan. I guarantee you, you're going to be healthy. Because when you work for somebody else and you get sick, you stay home. When you work for yourself and you get sick, nobody knows it because you're at work. My employees I give them I used to give them 7 sick days a year. They used them all. And they always took them at the first day of hunting season and fishing season. They got so sick on those days. Unbelievable. But when you're in business for yourself, you have to be not only a self-starter, you'll be at work. I always tell people we have a supportive family because all of you know that when you have something on your mind, something that you passionately love, something you're going to start a business, you feel so passionate about it, that's all you think about. And so that spouse of yours better understand you're having an affair with your business. I was one of those people. Gee, all I need is a great idea. I'll invent something and then I'll be successful. You know that's a myth. I know you know that. Yeah, I was thinking to myself, I wanted to say something. I don't know if I can tell you, but I can't. I had somebody who invented, this guy who worked for a construction company, and he invented a product. You ever seen these popcorn ceilings? You know what I mean by that? It's sprayed, what is it? Sprayed plaster. They call them pop. He invented something that would strip it and not make a mess in the room, come down into a funnel. And he invented that. Now he comes to the store. He happened to have me as the mentor. Now what do I do with this invention? One time I did give a talk to this group in the same building. I don't know if it was the same room. And I said, which I might ask you, how many of you would love to turn your invention into a business? They all raised their hand. Then I said, how many of you are actually going to do it? And all the hands went up. Because that's how things get done. You have to take the effort to take and move it ahead. When you went to that show, and people couldn't wait to see you, of course. If you look around any product show, they weren't around 5 years ago. They're all invented by people like you. The question is, who's going to make the money from the invention? That's all. If you go out on your own, you won't have to work as hard. I didn't believe that. You'll be able to deduct everything, so you won't have to pay any taxes if you're in business. Remember what I told you. After a while, if it's a hobby, you can't deduct expenses. I mean, some of you are a golfer, you don't deduct your golf expenses. If you work independently, you won't have to have a boss, that's true. You won't have a boss, you'll have many. All your customers. If you go to the bank and borrow money, another boss. I realized that when I started my first business I just want to go out and make sales calls. That's all I wanted to do. And I realized that who's going to do the rest? It's a single business. It was me. And if you don't believe what I just showed you up here, you can do anything you want to do. You can turn your dream and your vision and your new product into a successful business. It's all up to you. It really is. As I said earlier, I'm very lucky, man. I loved what I did. And I hope all of you are doing something that you love to do. Most people today that go into business better love what they do. When you're watching television and all you see is the talk of General Motors or Apple, or places like that, you're missing the point of this country. It's run by small business. So when the discussion came up in the government about regulations, it wasn't about Apple, it was small businesses. It's huge in this country. 77 million people make up the U.S. small business workforce. That's something. This is the most common way to start it. This is the most common. I'm going to start a business from scratch. One person. I'm going to start a little business. That's it. Very simple. Not hampered by any technology. Choose my own logo. I'm going to go, because somebody over here said, I want to get some help on a website. Did you say that? I'm going to interrupt myself now. SCORE has webinars you can go to online. Over 30 webinars of information that you can listen to and watch at home. Anything from digital marketing, website development, financial, email marketing, leasing space, upgrading your website, hire a professional developer. All this information is available to all of you, and it's free. Most people don't understand what is available in the marketplace that's free. I know what some of you are thinking. If it's free and couldn't be worth very much. I used to think that. Not true. SCORE's an exception to that rule. So all of this from Minneapolis.score.org, you go online, all this information is available. If you leave your email address with Steve or Mike or anybody, I can put you, so all this information on the list, so all this information gets to you only once a month, because we don't like to inundate you with email junk. Financial, funding alternatives, where do I get money? I should have bought a lot of them, I didn't. Starting a new business. You see your dreams come true. It's riskier because you're not like buying a company. You don't have a track record. You could buy a business. I did that. I bought some companies. Lots of businesses are for sale. Why? Business bad? No, business is actually terrific. What you see, what you hear is the truth. Business is good. Very good. In the paper today, you're going to read AGCO down in Jackson, Minnesota. Anybody hear of that? AGCO. Yeah. Big spray book. You know what they're doing? To hire people, they're creating their own educational system for what people to learn how to weld, to learn how to do different trades. The state is giving them $5,000 per employee, per person, I should call it. Can't find enough people. You cannot find enough people. What is the unemployment rate? 4? The lowest it's been in half a century. Can't find enough people. It'll never be 0, never be 1. I used to say 5 would be the bottom. Obviously, it must be 4. So business is very good. And the interest rates, ironically, are still very low. Normally, when you have this much heated economy, the Fed will see that the rates go up. So buying a business, people have a lot of business for sale because most of us, when we have a business, our children don't want it. Right, Max? They don't want your business.
You've got to be very careful if you're going to buy a business from someone else.
Did you hear what he said? You have to be very careful when you buy a business for somebody else, because when you buy a business, all the advantages are on the left. But the disadvantages, what makes you think all that business is going to stay once that person sells? Did you analyze the inventory, everything of what you're buying? I made a mistake once, cost me $300,000. I didn't do a due diligence on the inventory I bought. Of course, I made the mistake. I blame my employees for it. And there's no guarantee the success that they had will be yours. And that's why many companies who sell, or when you choose to buy another business, you say to the person who's selling to you, I will give you half down and I'll pay the rest of the half over the next couple of years, but you have to stay on to make sure the business stays. Because it's riskier to buy. But it's greater risk to start from scratch. Franchises, bigger than ever. Who's the #1 franchise in the country? Who? McDonald's? Everybody guesses that. No. Who? Who said Subway? Yeah, Subway, it's #1. Yeah, and they just, these franchises just keep growing. I'd be very bad at that. I couldn't do that because I don't like to be told what to do. I don't like to do it in a specific way. I'm just not good at that. I'm a bad employee. That's why I started my own business. I couldn't work for anybody. I'm a terrible employee. People have home-based businesses. Family distractions, zoning and deed restrictions, but it's a nice place to work. You're right at home. But the most, and by the way, when I show nonprofit, I don't mean it's a business with the intent of losing money. Bless you. I'm talking about nonprofit businesses set up like a 501c3 nonprofit. This is growing like leaps and bounds. And then when all of us, we had a speaker one day. We have once a month, we have a speaker. Breakfast meeting. This guy was one of 2 market analysts for RBC, the 25,000 employees. And I was sitting in the front. And I remember certain things. He said the stock market doubles itself, I forgot if he said every 10 or 12 years. And he tracked it back 100 years. This is 2 years ago he gave the talk. And he said by this date, the market's going to hit 30,000. This time, the market was 22, it was 12,000 at the time. Can you imagine it? Look, what is that, 24, 25,000 today? Then he says, how do you like my sport coat? And everybody said, yeah. So he said to all of us at SCORE, how many of you, and I'm going to ask all of you the question, raise your hand, how many of you bought anything from Amazon? Look around the room. I sat up here and I turned around and looked and I said, my God, look at that. And I'd say the average age in this room, I'm not going to guess, that might be offensive to some people. But it's like SCORE. Can you imagine? Then he looked and he says, how do you think your grandchildren are going to buy food and products in the future? Look what you're doing. And I'm an Amazon addict. I mean, I buy something all the time from them. So that's how the market has changed. And if you think, well, look what Amazon has done to the biggest employer in the country. They have made Walmart react to them. Now you can go online from Walmart, order food and pick it up. Don't have to go in the store. Did you? I love Costco. Anybody like Costco? I love Costco. Oh my God. Did you know that at my house, at my location, I can go online, buy fruit and vegetables, anything that they have there, and they'll deliver to my house in an hour? Free. Think about that. And my son-in-law says to me at dinner, yeah, I wouldn't do that because I want to pick out the freshest, best fruit and vegetables. I wanted to say this, I didn't know. I said, you dummy, you think they're going to give you the worst? They're going to give you the best. They don't want to reject. They don't want you to be unhappy. They want you to keep coming back. They're going to pick out fruit and vegetables that are better than you could pick out. Online business is affecting everybody. So when you ask the question about the website, huge impact on all of us. All that technology, all that digital marketing is affecting everybody's way of life today, no matter what you're doing. So online businesses, your customers can be any place in the world today. Yes, sir.
I'm curious, for both the volunteers and the clients of SCORE, what percentage of that deal with something like what we are, inventors, typically talking about new products versus services versus online things, but typically we're talking oftentimes physical products, not always. But I'm curious what percentage that is versus all the others.
That's a very good question. And I don't know the answer, so I can relate to myself. I'd say 20%. Our product, generally a new product, wouldn't be an old product, something new. Could be something in the medical field, something new. I'm on an email which every new gadget that comes out on the market has been invented. I get something, and some of the things are incredible. But people have to take those products and market them. See, you don't have to go into business to make what you've invented profitable for you. You just have to find the right channel to get that product out into the marketplace. Now, that guy who invented that thing that I told you about the ceiling, his market and his supply chain was, he went through a rep. He contacted a representative who represented all these companies that make those kind of products that go through construction people. And then he marketed it into the construction distribution center. Like a Home Depot. Didn't go from his product to Home Depot, but from him to a big wholesaler to Home Depot. Can buy a rep. He just wanted to make this product. And that's what you have to find out. How can I get this place into the supply chain? How can I get the product out there? If I meet any of you in a bar or at Perkins, I want you to remember this. Okay? If you go to the bar, you won't see me there anyway. But Perkins, you will, down here. Every Friday at noon, for the last 15 years, I have breakfast there with my wife. And if I get busy on Friday, she'll just kill me. I have to go there. When you have a product, all you have to remember is who needs it? Why do they need it? And why is it different or better than anything else out there? Now you think about what I just said to you. Who needs it? So if you're inventing something, who needs it? Why do they need it? And why is that different or better? If you can't explain those three things, then I'm going to tell you, it's not going to sell. Nobody will buy it. No one. Who needs it? Why do they need it? Why is it different or better? Very simple. And when you think about that, when you go out and buy something, your brain subconsciously thinks of those things. I need that. And you know why you need that. And the reason you're buying it is because it's the best. Does that make sense to you? So in essence, if you hear the word competitive advantage, it just distinguishes you from the competition in the minds of the customer. When we go to Costco, we know what we're going to get. If I say low price shopping, what comes to your mind? What? Isn't that incredible? They own those words. Isn't that amazing how they imprinted on all this? Low price shopping, Walmart. Okay, now put them aside. They own that. So it's not about price anymore. So when you distinguish yourself, the differentiation is what separates what you're going to do, what you have, from everything else. That's a differentiation. If you're going to start a new business, good choice of time, adequate capital, ability to manage. How much time do I have?
10 minutes? 15,
That's it.
10 to 15.
I've been married twice, so I can talk about my marriages when I get to the end.
Sure.
Okay. By the way, that third one down, ability to manage and multitask. That's for the men in the room. Women know how to multitask, men don't. But when you start a business, that's why men have a tougher time, because you gotta do more than one thing at the same time. You gotta be able to multitask. You have to know what you're doing, therefore you have to know the education in the business you're going into, strong work ethic. I got that from my father. My father was a Russian immigrant. And boy, he was typical. I mean, you never said a word back to my dad. My three brothers and I, it was tough. When we got older, we were gonna have, do you remember in high school, they still have letter sweaters for the athletes, and they have the year, and then the stripes for how many years? My brothers and I were gonna have a letter sweater with how many years we worked for him, and the logo were gonna be 2 crosswords. Because that's what it was like working for him. God, was he tough. Willingness to ask for input from others. Willingness to attend conferences, attend meetings, listening to speakers. Even if you pick up one thing. Now I'm going to give you the key to success. Don't forget, who needs it? Why did they need it? Why is it different, better? Don't ever forget that. I'm going to tattoo it on your arm. God, every time I say that statement, I've got in my mind, if I don't say it, I'll think about it. I was at work one day, and again, I lived in Golden Valley. And I get a call from the Golden Valley Police Department. I was a single parent for 11 years. I said, well, he says, I have your son, he's in jail. My son at that time was 13. My son? He said, what did he do? He said he and 4 other boys took a tennis ball, soaked it in gasoline, lit it, and they played catch with it. They had gloves on, and the neighbor reported them. And I go, what? I couldn't believe the stupidity. So I said, I'll be down there in 2 hours. I wanted him to sit with a policeman waiting for me with my size coming down there. Mr. Harris, you have to come down now. We're not going to babysit your son. I said, listen, I'm in a meeting. I wasn't in a meeting. So finally, I'd be down there in 20 minutes. I go down there. I walk in the room. It's dark, and they're showing a movie to these kids, 5 kids, about burn victims. It was the worst movie I'd ever seen in my life. The worst. Nothing worse than burn victim. Oh. Lights go on, movie's over. He sees me in the back of the room. And he comes up, stands next to me, looks up at me. I don't acknowledge he's there, of course. Talking to another mother. I get in the car, drive home, I'm not saying a word. Dead silence. Drive in the garage, right down Winnetka Avenue. Get in the garage, and I turn off the car engine. I looked at him, and loud as hell, I said, did you learn something today? I can't be with you all the time, so I'm going to buy a tattoo and put it on your arm. Don't do anything to hurt yourself. Don't do anything to hurt anybody else, and don't do anything to hurt somebody's property. You got that? Why do I think of that? Because if I had to tattoo something on your arms, when you invent something, who needs it? Why do they need it? And why is it different and better than anything else that's out there? Just think about that. Every time you come up with something new, think about that. Now, one more thing. If you want to be successful in anything you do, all you need is 2 things. Actually, there's 3, but it was something my mother told me that I didn't do, so I don't want to tell you. My mother told me to marry rich. And I didn't do it. She said, if you want to be successful, and she, 4 boys. I mean, you have to have a competence in what you're doing. That means you have to have a knowledge of what you're doing. You have to have an incredible amount of knowledge of what you are doing. I wouldn't open up a restaurant because I eat in them. I have to be able to say I can run a restaurant. Everything you do, you have to have a competency, a lot of knowledge of what you're doing. And the other is very simple, is you have to have passion for it. You have to have love for it. If you have competency in what you're doing and you have a passion for what you're doing, whatever you're going to do, you're going to become successful. I don't care if you're an athlete or you're in business. It doesn't make any difference. If you don't have a passion, you won't work hard. And I'm not talking about Michael Jordan, but he's an example. You just don't know how hard these guys work, but he had a love for what he was doing. Therefore, you'll work hard. About anything. Competency and passion equals success. Digital marketing plays a role in everybody's business today. Just does. And you can't ignore it, okay? Don't put your head in the sand. You're not going to ignore it. It won't go away. It's here. Did somebody bring up Sharp? Did you bring up Sharp?
I did.
You guys, is everybody watching? I love it. Mr. Wonderful doesn't always thrill me, but I love the program. And, you know, Mr. Wonderful, well, what was your sales last year? What, you know, he interrupts me. So this lady comes on with her husband, and she invented something. She made something that was like a sock that went up to here, and it was braided, and it was really beautiful, all different kinds. And he was just laying through. What were your sales last year? And finally, she answered, and she said, 2.5 million. Dead silence. 2.5 million. Why are you here? She wanted to expand. Where did she get the sales from? If you watch the program, most of them who have sales will tell you off the internet, website. They don't have salespeople going out and selling products. Digital marketing. Inbound marketing, stuff that comes in. You know, so I brought up websites a few times already from your question. Email marketing, getting leads, social media, mobile marketing. You know what this is? What is this? This is the mic. I'll give it back, don't worry.
Smartphone,
Smartphone, what else?
computer.
Who said that? You're right. Most people don't say that. You did.
I did.
It is the biggest development in technology since the invention of a computer itself. Is this. This thing that sometimes we make a phone call with, sometimes we send out messages, but it's nothing more than a computer. I pay my bills through here.
And a camera.
Hmm?
And a camera.
And a camera. Boys become a camera.
I put my cat video online using my camera, phone, computer.
And that's how things have changed now. I had a client who came into me 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Joy and Virgo. Remember what I said earlier, what happens when they come and you have a dumb idea? She comes in and says to me, I'm going to go into business for myself, developing software that will format websites to the size of a data phone. And I'm going, that's the dumbest thing I've heard. Come on. I didn't say that to her. I'm thinking it. Oh, by the way, one of the websites is from her. So she became very successful, obviously. Because she had a passion for what she was doing. There was a need. She knew the need by all the retailers had that need because you want everything formatted on this phone correctly. That's when, and they needed it because they want to sell products, and there was nothing better out there. So she became very successful. She didn't have necessarily the best mentor. I didn't know what she was talking about. By the way, to be a mentor like me, Do I have to know everything you're doing? There's not many women in this room. Gee. How many of you have heard of the women's store called Primp? P-R-I-M-P. You, okay. Well, you have a lot of knowledge.
I only know of the name. I've
Well, they're
never
one of
heard
my
one
clients.
in.
These are two women who went into business from the South. They raised $16,000. They now have 9 locations, very profitable, carved out a niche in the business world. They're in Mankato, Rochester, Owatonna, they're in South Minneapolis, White Bear Lake, Selby and
St. Paul.
Selby, and the West End. But they had this passion. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew they were going to be different. We're going to have a store that has high fashion clothes at affordable prices. That's their tag. Now you might say, Mort, what do you know about women's fashion? Nothing. But business is business. They're all the same. Let me give it back before I put it in my pocket. Mine looks like yours. You might wonder, is it easy or difficult to get money if I want to do something? It's not difficult at all. You have to have a plan. There's lots of money out there. If you plan to turn your product into any size of business at all, put together a business plan. I got one more story to tell. You know, if I have stories, I'm very grateful. I have a condo in half hour north of Tampa, Florida. About 5 years ago, we had a hell of a snowstorm. And my wife says to me as I'm going to bed, there's another one coming. Why don't we leave now? And I said, no, I'm not going to leave at 11 at night. So she wakes me up at 3 in the morning. The snow, it's coming, let's go. Car's packed, I get in the car, not a happy camper. And like most guys, I'm driving the whole way because we don't think women want to drive. So I drove, and I'm driving and driving. Now finally it gets light out, and I'm now in southern Indiana, and I'm exhausted. Now I'm in Paducah, Kentucky. I'm going to Tampa, Florida. And I turned to my wife, and some of you guys know how to do this. Honey, immediately, the answer is going to be yes, no matter what I ask. Honey, sweetie, would you mind taking over the driving because I'm falling asleep at the wheel? She said, sure. I pull the car over. She gets in the driver's seat. I get in the passenger seat, and she drives. The next part of this story, this little part, I'm making up because I don't remember. I wake up 2.5 hours later, and I see a sign. Remember, I'm going to Tampa, Florida. And the sign says, Pittsburgh, 225 miles. And I am sitting there, and I'm going, what the? And I can't sit. And I just, honey, just when you see a place to pull over, what's wrong? Nothing. Just pull over quick whenever you find a place. And then it hits me. I drive every year. I don't need a map. I don't put it in my GPS system. We're on a highway. I just said drive, and she drove. We could have been in the Atlantic Ocean if I wouldn't have woke up. So I had to drive back quite a ways to get back to Highway 75 to go down through Atlanta and then towards Tampa. Now, why am I telling you the story? Because nobody in their right mind would take a trip, do anything without a plan. Nobody would. You wouldn't get in your car and drive cross country without a map or use your GPS system. That's the same as a business plan. You wouldn't do it. No matter how much proof I can show you about people who have a business plan and ones that don't, you wouldn't do it. You're twice as likely to become successful. No matter what all of you do in life, if you write it down and you make yourself a plan, even if you're going on a diet, make yourself a plan, and then you will become successful. That's the end of my stories, and I'm sticking to them. Do you have any questions?
More or less, volunteers to clients.
Because when you go online, by the way, and how to get a mentor, all of you could go online at minneapolis.score.org and get a mentor. And when you put on there, that one of the lines is going to be there, what business or interest you have. And if it's, I want to go into the restaurant business, we'll assign you to somebody who has experience in a restaurant business. I'll never see that person. But somebody says, oh, I want to distribute a product or manufacture. I want to be able to manufacture something, and I don't know how to get a mold made. They would give you to me. That's how we do that. We try to assign you to the people that can help you. Thank you, guys, and good luck to you. Don't forget, the product needs to get into the marketplace. And I'm going to tell you, there's so many new products and new businesses all the time. You couldn't be living in a better place at a better time than right now. Thank you. Where do I pick